Hey folks, it's Ahmed once again, and like I said in my previous video, I had recently picked up this collector's edition of Village of the Damned. Want to do a little review, not of the movie, I'm going to wait for that for another day, but I do like the film. I think it's a bit underrated. To give some, at least a couple thoughts, I really enjoyed Christopher Reeve. It's his last performance before he had his horse accident, where he got paralyzed. I think Christopher Reeve did a great job on the acting front. Some nice supporting cast. I mean, you got Mark Hamill, you got Linda Kozlowski, Mrs. Crocodile Dundee, you got Michael Pare, you got Peter Jason, you have George Buckflower, you have Kirstie Alley, you have quite a few people. I thought the score is one of John Carpenter's more underrated scores. The the plot was fine enough. What had a decent enough pace. It still had that good mood and atmosphere of a John Carpenter movie. Some pretty decent special effects. A little bit by Greg Nicotero's group, KMB, but also a little bit of ILM. Overall, I like the film. I think it's a pretty decent flick. But getting to the features, there was a slipcover, but I threw it away because I hated the new cover they came up with, which is this. This just didn't look good to me. It looked kind of bleh, meh. It just did nothing for me. I mean, I would appreciate a cover that had maybe Christopher Reeve and Mark Hamill and the other characters on there, Kirstie Alley, and then the children, or this just did nothing for me. I prefer the original cover. So I threw the slipcover away and just kept this. But the features are really good. They really pat this up with stuff. I mean, you do have a behind-the-scenes still gallery. You have the trailer. You have vintage interviews from back in the day, 20-some minutes, where it's really old interviews with John Carpenter, Christopher Reeve, Kirstie Alley, Linda Kozlowski, Mark Hamill. You have It Takes a Village, the making of Village of the Damned, which is about a 49-minute documentary on the film. They talk with director John Carpenter, producer Stanley Keene, Michael Pare. He has a couple moments in there because he didn't have a big part in the film, but it's cool to see him in there. Peter Jason, who has a separate interview, which I'll get into as well. Meredith Salenger, Greg Nicotero, who again had a little bit to do with this film. A lot of the people who played the kids, like the little girl who gets her eye fucked up, the main sort of girl who is Christopher Reeve's daughter, the kid played by Thomas Dekker, who's kind of maybe he's the kid with a bit of humanity to him. They talk with quite a few of the kids, and they're grown up. The kids talk about how they got into the film, how they were cast. They talk about how these are not wigs. It is their real hair. And how some reviews talk about how, oh, the wigs are shitty. And they're like, wait a minute, this is our real hair. They just dyed it. So yeah, this is not wigs. It's real hair. Thomas Dekker, he was also a Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and it's fun because he gives shit about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, calling it a horrendous mess or something to that effect, because that was a remake that just stole shots for entertainment value. But John Carpenter, when he does a remake like The Thing or this, he's still trying to make it his own. Thus, John Carpenter's Village of the Damned. So that was fun. First off, talking shit about the Elm Street remake, which I hated. And also, he's proud of the film. This was his first big film. And most of the people are pretty proud of this film, which is really cool. Because I think this film, watching it again, I think it's pretty underrated. It's not that bad of a movie. It was never the Carpenter film I watched a lot growing up, but I still liked this film. Michael Pare talks about how he always wanted to be in a John Carpenter movie, and he was cast because maybe the audience believed that maybe he'll be the lead of the film. Because Michael Pare had done some stuff, Streets of Fire, Eddie and the Cruisers, among other flicks. John Carpenter talks about, and Sandy Keene, how the original idea was for a remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon. John Carpenter really wanted to do that, but Universal said pretty much, fuck you, no, you can't have that. Here's your assignment. You gotta do Village of the Damned. So Carpenter took the assignment. It's not that he really wanted to do Village of the Damned, but again, he wanted to do Creature from the Black Lagoon, but they told him to go fuck himself. That would have been amazing to see a Creature from the Black Lagoon with John Carpenter, because you know he would have had KMB, and KMB would have done a practical creature, and a Creature from the Black Lagoon with the mood of a John Carpenter movie. Universal, a bunch of assholes. And speaking of which, later on in this, they talk about how the studio took the film away to cut on their own, not letting John Carpenter have final cut. Even an actress talks about how a third of the film was gone by the time it was done with it. Greg Nicotero talks about a little scene which they show, not the scene, but the rough footage. For example, all the babies rising up, and it's done practically after they've been born, and then all the babies rise up. Like, you know, in the hospital, when a baby is born, they put them in that room, and they have the little cubicle and a blanket. Well, those would rise up, and then the baby would sit up, and all of them would turn their heads at the same time to look out the window. It was all done practically. And it looked pretty cool, actually, and that was cut out. No one knows why. Just the studio did what the fuck they wanted. They say a lot of nice words about Chris Reeve, which is really cool. Mark Hamill gets talked about. Kirstie Alley gets talked about. Mark Hamill's not interviewed, but he was doing Star Wars, so I'm sure that's why. Of course, Christopher Reeve passed away. Kirstie Alley, I don't even know where the hell she's at. But a lot of people have nice things to say about Christopher Reeve. Let's see. I gave a lot of it away, but I don't know if I want to give every single thing away of the documentary. I mean, I gave a good chunk of it away. But very in-depth documentary, very interesting doc. The couple little things that's a bit weird. Number one, of all the actors, they never, well, I don't remember them talking much about Linda Kozlowski, who is one of the main stars of the film. I mean, she's the mother of, what is it, David? The maybe decent kid, one played by Thomas Dekker. And she's one of the only survivors of the film. And what, A, she's not interviewed, and B, no one talks about her. Not that I remember, unless I was fucking dazed and it passed over. But I don't remember them ever talking about her. And I'm like, she's one of the stars in the movie. I mean, why? Why is she not even mentioned? I thought that was weird. Not even kind of, I thought that was a bit weird, a bit strange. Not even like Thomas Dekker, because she played his mom in the movie. Thomas Dekker doesn't mention her. John Carpenter doesn't mention her. Producer doesn't mention her. No one mentions her. I'm like, why? Let's see. They say, like, one actress says a third of the film cut out, but they don't get too much into details of. They do mention that, you know, that scene with the babies, and then Thomas Dekker mentions there was a scene where the kids are going by a playground and some bullies fuck with them, and then they fuck with the bullies. But he doesn't go into details of what exactly the kids do to the bullies. Do they kill the bullies? Do they throw the bullies against the wall? I'm not exactly sure what happened with the bullies. So I would like to hear a little bit more detail into that. And the third thing, it'd be nice to hear a little bit of talk on the music, the score. Like Dave Davies. Because it's music by John Carpenter and Dave Davies. Who the hell is Dave Davies? I don't know if he's ever worked on a score with John Carpenter. Who the hell is Dave Davies? And what did he have to do with the score? So those are three little things. But still, it's a 49-minute documentary. It's pretty packed. It's pretty damn good. Just those three things, a little nitpicks that I had to mention. You have a new, new Horror's Hallowed Grounds, where it's about 15 or 20 minutes where Sean Clark visits the locations. Unfortunately, no guests. Like, once in a while, you have this guy, Robert Russell, who appears as a joke. Hey, how come you're not doing Elm Street 2? Like, I don't know if that joke has run its course to them. Not to me. I always love it, but maybe they just don't do it anymore. And, like, no one from the movie, like, not John Carpenter. Well, you're not going to get him out there, but, like, no one from the cast or crew. Like, one guy who was a police officer and played a police officer who gets killed. But other than that, no one else. But I love Horror's Hallowed Grounds. It's always cool to watch that. I wish there was a show, like a weekly show. I really do. I think I've said this before, but Horror's Hallowed Grounds, I really do wish it was or even just a web show, like on YouTube. Like a weekly show, or even a monthly show. Or, you know how people have, like, Andrew Video Game Nerd or such, they make a video and it's like once every 2 weeks or once a month. Horror's Hallowed Grounds should be that. Like, locations of Poltergeist, locations of Child's Play, locations of Friday the 13th films, locations of Elm Street 2, Robert Russell. But, The Go-To Guy, My Career with John Carpenter by Peter Jason. That's a really good interview. It's about 45 minutes long. For those who don't know, Peter Jason has worked with John Carpenter a lot. He was one of the scientists in Prince of Darkness. He was a guy in They Live who kind of ran the church that had the sunglasses and talks with Roddy Piper and Keith David. I think he was the guy driving the train in Ghosts of Mars. He had a little bit role in Escape from L.A. He had a bit role in this. He does about how he met John Carpenter, how he got Prince of Darkness, some ideas he had for the character, getting some advice from David Warner, which that was fun. He talks about They Live, has some really nice things to say about Roddy Piper, because he had never heard of Roddy Piper. He didn't know who the hell Roddy Piper was. But talked about how genuinely nice of a guy Roddy Piper was, which that was very cool to hear. So he talks about Village of the Damned. He does a classy thing where he talks about Christopher Reeve and says he was a really nice guy. I'm not going to be here to talk shit about the guy. I guess in other films, sometimes people had a problem with Chris Reeve, but he was always nice to the crew and the cast, and he was nice to me. He would wake me up like at 4 in the morning. Hey, you want to play tennis? And Peter J's like, no, I want to sleep. You want to go off and like go on a boat or something? Like, but he does tell, because I always heard about how Christopher Reeve and John Carpenter had a fight, and it's never mentioned in the actual documentary. I mean, John Carpenter has nice things to say about Chris Reeve and said he did a great job acting in the film. That was really cool. But I'm like, okay, that's never mentioned. But it's nice that you had the Peter Jason interview because he does mention it. But he tells it in a classy way. It's not fuck you, it's not the documentary of this where the effects guys just shit over everything, kind of, in my opinion, kind of look like an asshole. I know that's not fair because they're giving an honest opinion, but I just didn't care for it. I can't help it. I just didn't care to listen. I'm like, cut the shit out. Just give me the info of the making of the film. But here it was done classy. Or classier, in my opinion, than that fucking documentary for that movie. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. You can disagree. This is my opinion. Because he mentions how John Carpenter and I guess he doesn't remember what the fight was about, but they had a big fight and they went to the trailers. And Peter Jason went on. He knocked on the door. Chris was like, "What do you want? Go away. Come on, open up. Go away. Come on, open up." He does open up. And Chris is like, "Hey, Chris, come on. What's the name of the movie? It's called John Carpenter's Village of the Damned." "Oh, but what? You don't have... So, what, you're not going to work anymore? And then the whole crew's going to... No one's going to be able to work and no one's going to get paid?" Like, he said it in a funny way, though, and then Chris like, oh, and then Peter Jason and someone else, like, hid in the bushes to watch Chris Reeve walk out of the trailer to go to John Carpenter, and then they talked, and then it was fine. And he even mentions how, families have fights once in a while. And while making that film, it felt like a family. Which is true. I mean, if you think that's a lie, have you ever been on a road trip? If you ever been on a road trip, there's going to be some fights, and there's going to be arguing. What the fuck you doing? If you have friends, there's probably times where you don't have a fight. Or at least a disagreement or argument. Less so if it's like YouTube, because you talk to each other like once a week. But if it's right next door and you see them every day, and every day, sometimes something's going to snap. It's not because you're an asshole, it's just, I think that's part of human nature. It's just how do you handle it, how often does it happen, so forth. But I love Peter Jason. He told the story in a funny way. But also being honest, because that's something I had heard about. And also, I had another story I had heard about, which is not mentioned in the documentary, but it's mentioned in the Peter Jason interview, which, again, I'm glad he mentions this, is about how he didn't mention her name, but we could tell he's talking about Kirstie Alley. About how she had this big speech, first scene, talking with everyone, and then she had a note, a pad of paper, and Carpenter's like, oh, we don't need that pad of paper in the scene, take it away. And then when they took it away, Kirstie Alley, again, Peter Jason doesn't mention her name, but when he's describing the scene, that's the only scene in the movie where someone, a woman, and he says this she, like he's saying she, there's only one scene where a woman is giving a big speech, and that's Kirstie Alley. And she didn't remember any of her lines. She didn't remember a single line. And again, Peter Jason tells it in a funny way. He seems like a cool guy. And it's on take 10, take 12. And then Carpenter said, learn your lines, and just walked away, pissed. But that's like he tells us, like, you get some dirt, but he's not being an asshole about it. It really is about a guy reminiscing on something funny that happened. He talks about Steve from LA, how Kurt Russell was nervous about, oh, you think John will let me bring my son on? And Peter Jason tells him, Kurt, you're the producer as well as the star. I think it's okay. And Kurt Russell's like, yeah, I am the producer. And put his son in a cameo in the movie. And then Peter Jason, I think, accidentally smacked Kurt Russell's son. Which I don't know if Kurt ever heard about it, but then anytime they did the scene, like, the kid would straighten up, and it was like an accident. I mean, he tells it better than I am. And then tells a story about Ghost of Mars, which he worked on, because he had a bit part, but he mentions that Courtney Love was going to be the original actress of Ghost of Mars, and she got hurt, or she wasn't working out, then they got Natasha Henstridge. And that how he had little to do in the film, acting-wise, so he got to do behind the scenes. And so if you watch the Ghost of Mars DVD, the behind the scenes, a lot of that he shot himself. He shot a lot of those behind the scenes stuff. And how it was much longer, and the studio took it and shortened it. But really interesting interview. Very entertaining. Really enjoyed the interview. But yeah, this is a really good Blu-ray. I mean, a 49-minute making of, and then a 45-minute interview with Peter Jason, which was fun. A Horror's Hallowed Grounds, which is nice to see. I always love to see those. Interviews, behind-the-scenes footage from back in the day. The trailer. So, Still Gallery. This is a really packed Blu-ray, so I do think this... I'm curious about the Serpent and the Rainbow Blu-ray, but I've heard so many bad things about the Blu-ray that I don't want to pay fucking $30 for that, because the shit I've heard about it. I really don't. So I'm not getting that anytime soon, unless someone sends it to me or I get rich. Because that one, I heard that the commentary, Bill Pullman is so busy, it's more like an interview, and then halfway through the commentary he leaves, and then no one stays, so it's just blank. no commentary, so it's only half a commentary. I'm like, so is that really a commentary? And then the making of, they barely get anybody, and it's only about 20 minutes, and that's it, and there's like nothing else. There's no, well, I guess it'd be hard to do Horse Hallowed Grounds. Sean Connery would have to go overseas to Haiti. But I mean, it is that Blu-ray just sounds shitty. I mean, I'm curious to hear what Bill Pullman says, because I like Bill Pullman, but that is not worth the money. No. This is. I think this is, in my opinion. I think the features, like this, People on the Stairs, I was kind of disappointed in. Shocker, I enjoyed those features. People on the Stairs just, yeah, I will admit, it did disappoint me a bit, other than the Wes Craven commentary. And some of the bits of interview with Greg Nicotero, like the K&B guys. I like that, but it's middle of the road. Shocker was good. Serpent Rainbow sounds like shit. Dog Soldiers, I thought was disappointing just the way the film looked. It looks like a grindhouse movie, and the documentary is long, but I didn't remember much about the documentary. I know it. Here I do, because I thought it was some interesting info. So I definitely think this is one of Stream Factory's best Blu-rays in a while. I mean, honestly, I would say it's the best Blu-ray since Shocker. Shocker I put above it because I love Shocker to death. That's why. So, Shocker I would put above this, but I do think of all the stuff I've seen and even heard, it's the best Blu-ray Stream Factory's done since Shocker. I really do believe that. So I really enjoyed this. But that's just my opinion. Again, maybe when I do a John Carpenter marathon one day down the road, I'll talk more in depth about the movie itself, but I wanted to talk about the features. I do think it's worth it. It's a worthy release by Scream Factory. I don't always suck their dick. You know this if you've seen my videos. But sometimes they do a good job, and this, I think they did. I wish all releases would get this treatment. There's no commentary track, which is... I know they said they asked John Carpenter and he said no. And I guess who else could you get on the commentary? Unless you got the kids together and did a commentary with them, maybe. But our commentary, if I had to pick between a commentary and a documentary, I prefer a documentary than a commentary. There's some commentaries I enjoy, but if I had to pick between the two, I'd pick a documentary. And the fact it's a 49-minute documentary plus the lengthy Peter Jason interview, I'll take that over a commentary. So that doesn't bother me. I just mentioned that because sometimes that bothers other people. There's no commentary. But I wish I Come in Peace got this treatment. I Come in Peace deserved this treatment because I Come in Peace is a cult movie. I would argue I Come in Peace is a bigger cult movie than Village of the Damned. Because I enjoy Village of the Damned, but no one talks about Village of the Damned. No one. More people, I've met more people that talk about I Come in Peace. And that deserved a much more in-depth documentary. And features and so forth. And and you could add a commentary like that. I don't know, I'm going off tangent, but anyway. I thought they did a good job with this. So anyway, thanks for watching, take care, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.